Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my Marvel Wandavision Episode 2 video. There were a whole bunch of Easter eggs. They moved into the 1960s, so we'll break it all down. If you're new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes, so be sure to subscribe to get everything. We're going to have Marvel episodes almost every week, all year long. We're also doing a Disney Plus giveaway for memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave your favorite WTF moment from the episode on the video. Careful for spoilers. If you have not seen the episode yet, I'm going to number this a little bit differently just because there's so much stuff happening in the first couple of episodes. But the episode begins with that same brand new Marvel Phase 4 intro scene that they tune a little bit differently for the WandaVision series. They'll probably do versions of this for all the different Marvel Phase 4 series, like when we get to the Loki episodes, the Falcon and Winter Soldier episodes, they'll get their own version of a special intro scene like this. But now we're into the 1960s. It's sort of a Dick Van Dyke Bewitched style episode. They start with that scene of the double beds. I did a video a little while ago because they released the scene a couple days early. Scarlet Witch is kind of doing her Samantha Bewitched thing, using her powers to turn on and off the light. Then they start hearing the banging sound and Vision starts to act really comedically, kind of like the Dick Van Dyke character. Vision, did you use your night vision? So you can kind of see, because during this era of television and during that particular TV show, the way that they wrote the jokes were a little bit different from the way they wrote the jokes during the I Love Lucy episode during episode 1. So the dialogue, the jokes, the way that they filmed the episodes, everything about each of these things is meant to be period specific, as if the show was being made during these different decades. Most of you probably guessed that the banging that they keep hearing throughout the episode, they keep referencing it later in the episode too, like Vision starts talking about security later in the episode during that neighborhood watch scene, and then they finally pay it off at the end of the episode. It's about the SWORD agents trying to bang their way into the alternate reality, because if you've seen the trailers, you've noticed that there's this giant dome of red energy around the neighborhood. They haven't completely explained how this alternate reality was created, only that this looks like Scarlet Witch's energy, and she's the one that seems like she has god-level powers inside here, so like she's controlling everything. But obviously it's much more complicated than that. We get a brand new version of the intro scene that's done like the Bewitched TV show, with all the jokes about their powers, Vision phasing through the walls in the shower because he doesn't need a shower. He phases through the closet because he also doesn't need to put clothes on, he just changes his appearance to make it look like he's wearing different clothes. When he phases through the floorboards though, you notice a couple big Easter eggs. The helmet there actually belongs to the character Grim Reaper from the comics. He's actually the brother of Wonder Man. Huge comic book deep cut for Vision's original origin story. Obviously, we don't really have Wonder Man in the MCU right now, but Wonder Man's brain patterns in the comics and personality were used to create Vision originally, to make him feel like a real human. You could also think of this spiderweb here as a Spider-Man reference because the director of WandaVision said that he was working with the director of Spider-Man 3, John Watts, to help with the continuity. That's more of the multiverse, big Marvel Phase 4 overplot though, so I'll talk about those Easter eggs when we see them in later episodes. WandaVision is meant to help set up Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man 3, and the Marvel version of the X-Men characters that we'll be seeing in Marvel Phase 4 and Marvel Phase 5, or the eventual rebooted X-Men film. That's why they're doing the House of M storyline, and obviously they're doing it in a very trippy Legion TV show style way, where nobody knows quite what's real and what's fake. You also notice there's some bones in the floorboards here too. You could also think of that as a callback to the joke from episode 1 about Vision having skeletons quote-unquote in his closet. I don't really have a skeleton. Then they go to the grocery store. There's Easter eggs all over the background in here. You actually see Monica Rambeau's character for the first time. She shows up in the actual episode pretty soon. But up on the logos behind here on the wall, you see Wonder and its cereal of some kind. Obviously, that's just another reference to Wonder Man. You see Bova milk because Bova was the character that helped save Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver as babies, giving them to their foster parents, the Maximoffs. He was working for the High Evolutionary too. There's a lot of rumors that he could actually show up during Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and he's the character who created Rocket. But Bova milk, bovine, cow, cow's milk, you get the reference. The Auntie A cat sign there, also probably another reference to Agatha Harkness in the comics. You also notice as the car is driving by all the neighbors and they're all chanting and singing in unison because Scarlet Witch is kind of controlling this reality. They sort of pay that off at the end of the episode too, when things glitch out but then swing back to normal. You also notice that Agnes is holding that bunny rabbit. The bunny rabbit shows up a couple times during the episode, so it seems like it has some more significance. We start the episode, though, with Vision practicing his talent show. Obviously, all this magic is referenced to Doctor Strange. There's also another big Doctor Strange Easter egg later in the episode. The pin that Monica Rambeau is wearing is a Doctor Strange portal, which is just another reference to that. Obviously, we're expecting more Doctor Strange Easter eggs in the later episodes as well. You notice that the box that he's going to be using as part of his magic talent show has the picture of the Mind Stone on the front of it. What's in the box? Everybody post all the memes. What is in the box? Tell me what's in the box. And because a lot of this energy is Dick Van Dyke, even though they're doing a lot of Bewitched stuff and she's kind of like Samantha, Scarlet Witch also very much looks like Mary Tyler Moore. The way her outfit looks, the way she acts, the way they do her hair. But then Vision leaves to go to the local town's watch to discuss the noise from last night. Remember, this is a serialized plot, so even though the mise-en-scène of the episodes changes quite a bit through the decades of different sitcoms, there is this overplot of the Sword agents trying to break in more and more until eventually the end of the episode, one of them finally does it. The episode goes a little Twilight Zone, though, when she hears the banging sound again and it starts to zoom in on her face, like she's starting to realize the reality's breaking around her, like she kind of seems like she's drunk the Kool-Aid and really believes in the lie of what's going on around her. But there are a couple scenes later in the episode that make it seem like she knows that this is not real. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. But the helicopter that she finds in the bushes is in color. That's the first sign that something is really, really wrong. It has a sword logo on it, and it's modern-day technology. It's also the red and yellow Iron Man colors as well. The MCU SWORD acronym actually stands for Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Team. So it sounds like within the MCU, Nick Fury creates SWORD to monitor superpowered people, which will also include mutants eventually, the X-Men characters, much bigger threats from outer space like the Celestials, eventually Galactus once we get to our Fantastic Four movies. We're just getting the teaser right now, so we'll learn more about what SWORD has been doing this whole time, but it's all tied to that Nick Fury SWORD space station that we saw in the Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit scenes. Then Agnes surprises her very ominously, saying it's the star of the show. And the way that she says it too, just the way that she performs that dialogue, makes it sound like she's really messing with Scarlet Witch during this. And obviously in the other trailers, when she's in the Halloween witch costume, she's messing with Vision as well, telling him that he's really dead. So however Scarlet Witch originally came to this alternate reality and created it with her powers, I think that Agnes, or Agatha Harkness, had something to do with that. You get a better look at the pin that she wears throughout all the different decades too. She has that during the first episode too, but you don't really see it close up till episode 2 here. It's hard to tell what the figures on it are. There's 3 different figures. It looks like a scythe. It could be a reference to the Grim Reaper. It could be a reference to something else. We'll probably get more Easter eggs for this later on. But then we meet the antagonist of the episode, Dottie, and her gang of neighborhood Rotary Club thugs. They have all this comedy about Scarlet Witch trying to fit in with them, even though she totally does not fit in with them. She said, maybe I should just be myself, and Agnes just kind of snorts at that idea. Please don't do that. Obviously another wink at the fact that please don't be yourself because you have special powers, you're an Avenger. When they have those lines of dialogue, the devil is in the details, and that's not the only place he is, obviously that's probably a reference to Mephisto, because he's such a big part of Scarlet Witch's children's backstory in the comics, and this episode is all about her getting pregnant. Most of the episode references children in some way. They keep saying the word children, talking about children, but you notice that there aren't a lot of children around the neighborhood until she gets pregnant later. Those children are Billy and Tommy from the comics. You actually see them in some of the other trailer footage. They get much older through the decades. That's one of the reasons why they're doing this whole tropey thing of the sitcoms through the different decades, so that they can age up their children to teenagers older by the end of the series, and they can go on to do Young Avengers projects and other Marvel Phase 4 series. If you don't know about Billy and Tommy, Wiccan and Speed, I'll talk about them in future episodes when they actually start showing up and we see their powers start to manifest, but they are X-Men characters, so this is mutants coming to the MCU through House of M. We also finally get to meet Monica Rambeau in the flesh for the first time. Like I said, her pin is a ring portal like Doctor Strange's ring portals. She calls herself Geraldine, but she also says she has no idea what she's doing here, like she genuinely has no idea, even though we know that she's a SWORD agent. So it sounds like when people break into this reality or they get sucked in somehow, their mind gets altered so that they fit whatever the scenario is based on Scarlet Witch's desires. Like when she starts to lose control, people start to realize, wait a minute, who are you? What am I doing here? What's going on here? Vision meets with the club and they have all of these funny communist jokes because this is still the 1960s, this is still hardcore Cold War era. They continue to tell jokes about him not eating food, then he eats the gum, and they turn it into a Vision gets drunk big comedy bit for the rest of the episode. They even do the old-timey cartoon version of the gum, literally gumming up his works, so to speak, even though you think that his vibranium technology would be so advanced that something like gum wouldn't be able to hurt it. You have to remember that because this is an alternate reality being controlled by Scarlet Witch, things don't obey the normal laws of physics or reality. When you have that big Scarlet Witch versus Dottie scene, I was just waiting for her to lose it on Dottie, but she doesn't quite take it that far. I think that happens a little bit in later episodes. Like, she slowly starts to go crazier and crazier as she starts to lose her control of the reality around them, and it starts to crack and crumble. Then just as it seems like she's about to lose it, you hear the SWORD agents on the radio trying to contact her, and it's Randall Park's voice as Jimmy Woo. You remember him from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Wanda, what's going on? Who's doing this to you? Remember, at this point, the SWORD agents have no idea what's going on, what created this, and what's happening to her inside here. They don't know that she's the person that's actually doing this. So it's not till later in the episode when you see her say no to the SWORD agent and rewind time in the reality that you find out that really she's kind of like the antagonist, like she's the villain of this series and the protagonist at the same time. Then the fake reality sort of snaps back to what it's supposed to be, and Dottie forgets about her bloody red hand and the fact that it's in color. We get our next commercial, and it's obviously a big Baron von Strucker Avengers Age of Ultron reference with a Hydra logo on the watch. The phrase, Strucker will make time for you, is obviously a big callback to her origin story with the Mind Stone during that Captain America Winter Soldier post-credit scene, and Quicksilver's origin story as well. But then Vision comes back super drunk off the gum, and Scarlet Witch tries to explain to him about what's going on with the helicopter, but they get roped into this big talent show, so she doesn't have time. And because Vision is so drunk, he basically tells everyone through his dialogue, his performance, what's actually happening inside this reality. It's all fake, it's all an illusion, we're going to deceive you. But the real funny moments of the bit, though, are Scarlet Witch trying to chase after him at each turn where he's sort of spoiling everything. He's being like Tom Holland, big spectacular spoiler man, giving away the secret. Every time he uses his powers, like he floats in the air or he lifts the piano, she uses her reality warping powers to hide that fact and make it seem like it's all fake. Until the one guy is like, wait a minute, that was my mother's piano, that's not fake. Then they have the joke about Monica Rambeau being magicked into the box. What's in the box? Because it's definitely not Scarlet Witch. They win Comedy Performance of the Year because everyone is just so flabbergasted by everything that they did, saving the day. And then Monica Rambeau also questions the nature of reality again. How'd you magic me from backstage into the box? How did that work? They go home, they start referencing their children, and suddenly realize, out of nowhere, Scarlet Witch is like 6 months pregnant. The twins aren't really born till the 1970s episode, till a little bit later, because you don't see the larger baby versions of themselves till the 1980s, when it looks like it goes to Family Ties. But then they hear that banging sound again, and it goes super dark, Twilight Zone, as the camera zooms in. They go outside, and you see the SWORD agent covered in bees, climbing through the sewer drain. Scarlet Witch says no and rewinds reality back to this moment with them thinking about their children, when all of a sudden Vision starts turning into color around them and the house starts changing to the 1970s Brady Bunch version of the house. The frame fades out again with the same type of outro scene in Jimmy Woo's voice calling out over the radio, Wanda, Wanda, can you hear me? Who's doing this to you? And the real TV screen in present day in the main MCU reality with the SWORD agent monitoring what's going on. Like I said, I think this is going to be Darcy's character from the Thor movies. But I know a lot of you are wondering, who is this character and why were there bees all over his hazmat suit? Obviously it's a SWORD agent because he has a SWORD logo on his back. I think this is just one of the SWORD agents himself. The reason why he probably had bees all around him swarming is because sometimes military teams will use bees as bomb detectors. And remember, Jimmy Woo, the SWORD agents, they have no idea what's going on in here. They think that somebody, a villain, is trapping Scarlet Witch and doing something terrible to her. So they're trying to break in to save her without knowing that she's the one that's doing this. In the moment where she says no and rewinds things, sort of gives away her hand. She's the one that's actually controlling all this, doing it to herself and to the people of the town. But obviously the big thing here is leading up to the birth of her twin children, the X-Men from the comics, the first legit X-Men in the MCU. What'll also probably start happening in the future episodes as well, too, is we'll see more footage from outside the reality in regular present-day MCU. I think a lot of people were thrown off by the first episode and most of the second episode because so much of it was in black and white, and they just jumped into the scenario without explaining how they got in here. That's just because of the way they want to reveal what's actually going on inside this quote-unquote reality, this very Matrix-like simulation-style version of reality. But if you spotted any big Easter eggs in the episode that I didn't mention in the video, just write them below in the comments. My WandaVision episode 3 video will post next Friday. All the episodes will post once per week from now on. There are 9 episodes total. That's going to take us right up to the premiere of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Then we'll get all the Falcon and Winter Soldier episodes, the Black Widow movie, then the Loki episodes, so on and so forth. So while you wait for everything, click here for my WandaVision episode 1 video, and click here for that brand new Black Panther 2 teaser. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.